This is the Welcome to Camp Hither, which is book 9 in the Goosebumps HorrorLand series by RL Stine, the Enter HorrorLand section. So when we turn the page, first thing, of course, is the ticket to get inside. The story so far. A group of kids received invitations to be very special guests at a scary theme park called HorrorLand. They came looking for good, creepy fun, but instead they found real horror. Frightening villains from their pasts followed them to the park. A park worker, a horror named Byron, warned them that they weren't safe in Horrorland. He said their lives were in danger. After 3 kids in their group mysteriously disappeared, the very special guests decided to escape. They made it as far as the parking lot. It didn't take long to realize they had walked into a trap. Boone Dixon continues the story. Chapter 1. I thought I'd be spending the whole summer at Camp Hither, but 1 week later I was happy to be away from the horrible place. Happy to be home. But it wasn't all good. My sister was driving me crazy. Heather wanted to play croquet in the backyard all day, and she cheated at it. Can you imagine a kid so lame she cheats at croquet? My friends were all away, and every morning Mom and Dad took turns saying, "Boone, have you done your summer reading yet?" Wow, awesome summer, right? And I didn't even mention the nightmares about snakes almost every night. So when the invitation came from Horrorland Theme Park, I was psyched. The card had a grinning monster on the front. At the park, I think they called them horrors. And under the monster, in creepy blood-red lettering, my name, Boone Dixon. An invitation for a whole week at Horrorland is a very special guest. The scariest theme park on earth. Could I say no? Mom and Dad put me on the bus 2 days later. As the towns, farms, and forests passed by my window, I couldn't stop thinking about the great rides and shows and scary fun. I knew where I wanted to go first. My friend Jonathan had told me about Werewolf Village. He swore the werewolves were real. I knew he had to be joking, but if you know me, you know I don't like mysteries. I had to check it out for myself. The bus ride was 4 hours. I was too excited to sit still. I kept getting up and changing seats. Finally, the driver braked the bus and shouted, "Horrorland Park, this is as close as I go." I peered out the window. I was at the entrance to the huge parking lot. I pulled my bag from the overhead rack, and I stepped down from the bus. The bus pulled away with a roar. I shielded my eyes from the bright sunlight. The parking lot was jammed with row after row of cars. Under the blazing sun, the cars all glowed as if they were on fire. I could see the park entrance at the other end of the parking lot. A tall green and purple fence surrounded the park. I shifted the bag to my other hand. Then I began making my way through the long rows of cars. As I got closer to the park, I could see the top of a black roller coaster near the fence, and I could hear screams and laughs and creepy music blaring. 2 ticket booths stood at the front entrance. I pulled out my invitation, and I started to trot toward the gate, but I stopped. I saw a group of kids near the entrance. There were about 8 or 9 of them. At first, I thought they were playing with some kind of net. Then I heard their screams, and I realized they were struggling against the net. Were they trapped under it? Yes, screaming and crying out for help, they thrashed and kicked and tried to free themselves. I dropped my bag on the asphalt. I started toward them and gasped. I blinked. I struggled to focus my eyes in the blinding sunlight. I stood there, staring. It wasn't a net. It was snakes. The kids were covered in snakes. Chapter 2. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. It all kept rushing back to me. All the terrifying, poisonous snakes I had just escaped from. "Help us! Somebody help!" The kids' screams jolted me from my panic. My heart pounding, I ran to see if I could help. A few feet away, I realized I was wrong. I wasn't staring at snakes. The kids were trapped inside a web of long purple vines. The vines had twisted all around them. They were trapped together, and the vines were moving. I could see the long tendrils growing, curling around the struggling kids, tightening around them. I couldn't believe my eyes. How was this possible? "Help us! I can't breathe!" A girl stretched her arm out toward me. The purple tendrils quickly wrapped around her wrist. "Help me!" "Okay, I'll try," I shouted. I dove forward and grabbed the vine around her arm. I tugged it with all my strength. I wanted to rip it away. The girl let out a shrill howl of pain. "Stop," she screamed. "Don't pull it. It's growing from me." "Huh?" I gasped. I dropped the vine and stumbled back a step. I peered in through the thick tendrils. I could just see the girl's eyes. "What do you mean?" I said. "I don't understand." "The vines, they're growing out of our hands," the girl wailed. "They're attached to us." I didn't know what to think. Was this really happening? The girl screamed in pain again. The others shouted for help. I decided it was real. I grabbed the vine around the girl's arm again. "I'll be more careful," I said. I tried to slide it away from her arm. I was being very gentle. I unwrapped a few inches of it, but the tendrils were tangled and twisted together. I worked at it for a minute or two. "Can you slide your arm out?" I asked her. "No, it's still tangled," she said. Kids were squirming and thrashing beneath the vines. Suddenly, I felt something move around my waist. I glanced down and let out a horrified gasp. A vine had wrapped around my middle. "No, no," I cried. I tried to jerk free, but the vine closed around me and pulled me in with the other kids. I grabbed it with both hands, but before I could tug it off me, another vine curled around my neck. The vines were warm, and they were dry like snakes. They moved quickly, curling and choking me. Trapped, I couldn't even struggle against them. Tightening, tightening, they pulled me down. Chapter 3. I dropped to my knees. I couldn't pull them off, and I couldn't twist away from them. I tried biting one and heard a boy scream. Were the vines really growing from the kids? It was too creepy to think about. I let out a groan as the tendrils pulled me down to the asphalt. Kids screamed and moaned, and then their cries were drowned out by a roar. I glanced out from the net of vines. The roar came from a purple bus. It pulled up beside us and stopped with a squeal of brakes. A green and purple monster jumped off the bus. He was short and thin and had tiny stubs of horns growing from the top of his head. I guessed he was a horror. He walked up to the net of vines and stood with his furry paws on his waist. 4 bigger horrors lumbered up behind him. They were muscular and nasty-looking and scowled down at us. The kids all grew silent. No one moved. The vines continued to slide and curl. That horror. "It's Ned," a girl whispered to the others. "Remember him? Ned?" "I'm so sorry you very special guests tried to leave the park," Ned said. His voice was soft. He didn't sound like a monster. He sounded like my English teacher. "Let us out," a boy cried. "We're suffocating," another boy shouted. "Can't breathe. It hurts. It's too tight." "You brought this on yourselves," Ned said. "You gave us no choice." "Let us out. You can't do this." One of the big horrors handed Ned a tool. It was silvery and had a wide bell on the top, with then a handle with a trigger. It looked a little like a hairdryer. "I'm going to free you now," Ned said. "Don't anyone try to run away. I need you to return to the park." He pushed the trigger on the handle. The silvery tool started to whir. He aimed it at the vine around my throat. I felt the vine loosen. It instantly shrank. I took a long, deep breath. Ned moved and whirred tool from vine to vine. The tendril slid off the kids and quickly vanished. 2 boys jumped to their feet. They scratched their hands. They took deep breaths and gazed around. A big horror moved close to them. He stood with his muscles tensed, alert. He wasn't going to let the 2 boys try to escape. A short while later, the kids were all on their feet. They were stretching their arms and taking deep breaths and rubbing the backs of their hands. "Onto the bus," one of the horrors boomed. The big horrors started shoving kids onto the purple bus. Ned handed the silvery tool to a horror. I stepped up to him. He studied me. "You're new?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes, I don't belong with this group." He frowned at me. "Really?" I just came over to help them," I said. "I thought they were being attacked by snakes." "Snakes?" a big horror cried. Did he say he saw snakes? The horrors all spun around to stare at me. "I'm terrified of snakes," I heard one horror mutter to the horror next to him. "Me too," his partner whispered. "Let's not talk about snakes," Ned said to me. Okay, I said, "but look, I just got here. I have this invitation." I pulled the card out of my jeans pocket. "I just got off the bus 2 minutes ago." "Boone Dixon." Ned read my name on the invitation. His eyes narrowed as he handed it back to me. He grabbed my bag in one furry paw. "Well, guess what, Boone?" he said. "You do belong with the others. Get on the bus, now." Chapter 4. Two big horrors moved toward me, flexing their muscles. I had no choice. I turned and climbed onto the bus. My head was spinning. What was going on here? I thought HorrorLand was a place to have fun. These other kids were very special guests too. Why were they being treated like prisoners? The bus was old and beat up inside. Some of the seats were ripped. The bus smelled like sweat and ripe fruit. I found a seat in the third row next to a dark-haired boy about my age. He told me his name, Matt Daniels. Then he introduced the two girls in the seat in front of us, Carly Beth and Sabrina. He pointed out a brother and sister across from us, Billy and Sheena Deep. So many kids. I struggled to keep the names straight. What's going on? I asked Matt. He sighed. It's a long story, Boone. All the kids were on the bus now. The big horrors squeezed in. One of them dropped onto the driver's seat. The others took seats in the back. They were so heavy, the bus bounced when they sat down. Ned stood at the front, holding onto a pole. He motioned for the horror to start the bus. The engine roared. The bus moved forward with a hard jolt. Ned grabbed the pole with his other paw to keep from falling into the aisle. The bus turned out of the parking lot and sped through the entrance gate into the park. I saw several startled people leap out of the way. Where are we going? Matt shouted to Ned. Where are you taking us? You need to stay in the park, Ned replied. The bus hit a bump and he bumped with it. I can't have you wandering off on your own. You can't keep us here against our will, Carly Beth cried. I only want to keep you safe, Ned replied. Safe? Did you say safe? Matt jumped to his feet. 3 kids have disappeared. Gone just like that. Where are they? What happened to them? Billy demanded. Calm down, everyone, Ned said. We're looking for those kids. We don't want you to worry about them. Those kids aren't in danger. Take my word. Take your word? A boy shouted from the back. Why should we take your word? Where are Molly, Brittany, and Michael? Sabrina asked. Tell us. Let us talk to Byron, Matt said, still standing. Bring us to Byron. Let him explain. Yeah, Byron is our friend, Billy said. Ned shook his head slowly. Byron no longer works for the park, he said. There were shocked cries all over the bus. We were very sorry to lose him, Ned said. Very sorry indeed. I watched the park roll by outside the window. I saw a theater and a row of small shops. A sign read, Welcome to Zombie Plaza. I was totally confused. Byron? Missing kids? What were they talking about? I didn't have a clue. Why were these kids so upset and angry? Carly Beth jumped to her feet and jabbed a finger at Ned. I have some questions for you, she said. I'll try to answer them, Ned replied. Tell us about Panic Park, Carly Beth said. What is it? Where is it? And tell us why there are no mirrors in HorrorLand. I'm sorry, Ned said. I'm happy to answer all your questions. Really, I am. But what you are asking about will take a long time to explain. Tell us, Matt demanded. Tell us the answers. We don't care how long it takes. Tell us, kids started to chant. Ned raised a hand to stop them. The most important thing, he said, is to keep you here in the park, to keep you away from harm. Harm? What kind of harm? I just got here, I said 5 minutes ago. I'm totally confused. Where are you taking us? Where am I taking you? You've given me no choice, Ned replied. He tightened his grip on the pole and leaned closer to us. I didn't want to do this, Ned said, but I have to take you all to the Keeper. Chapter 5. Everyone began to shout and argue. I watched them, trying to figure out what they were talking about. Was Ned crazy? He waved both paws to get everyone quiet. I'm very sorry it has to come to this, he said. The Keeper's methods are harsh. He can be unpleasant. Ned shook his head. Sorry, he said softly. You have given me no choice. Next to me, Matt was still on his feet. He ignored the bounces and bumps of the bus. He kept his eyes on Ned. How long do you think you can keep us prisoners here? Matt demanded. You are not prisoners. You are very special guests, Ned replied. The kids all laughed scornfully. I need to keep you here until we know you are safe from certain things. What things? Matt cried. Ned ignored the question. When it is safe, we will return you to your parents, he said. It's not true, Sheena Deep shouted. Byron warned us we're not safe in HorrorLand. Her brother Billy jumped up. If this park was safe, you wouldn't have to hold us prisoner. Do not try to fight this, Ned said softly. I'm giving you fair warning. Do not anger the Keeper. He can be difficult. That got all the kids shouting again. I glanced out the window. The bus passed a fenced-in area of tall trees. A sign read Werewolf Village. I wanted out. I had come here to have fun. I felt as frightened as the others, even though I didn't really know what was happening. Suddenly, I had an idea. A crazy idea to help us all escape from this weirdo Ned. Would it work? Chapter 6. Snake! I screamed. Snake! On the bus! I ducked behind the seat and pretended to wrestle with it. I grunted and groaned and pretended it was putting up a big battle. Help! I screamed. The snake is huge! Help me! I had overheard the horrors say they were terrified of snakes. Was it true? Yes. The bus squealed to a hard stop. So hard Ned toppled forward into the first seat, and 2 kids were bounced off their seats onto the floor. Snake! I cried. I kept pretending to struggle against it. I saw the big bus driver jump up. His eyes were wide with fright. He was the first one off the bus. Ned leaped off right after him. The other big horrors lumbered full speed up the aisle and jumped to the ground. Through the bus window, I watched them run off into the crowds. I turned. Kids were frozen in their seats, frightened too. No snake, I shouted, jumping to my feet. There's no snake. Let's get out of here. Matt slapped me a high five. New kid, good work, he cried. He spun around to the others. This is our chance. Let's move. We shoved our way down the narrow aisle and jumped off the bus. Matt led us behind it, where the horrors wouldn't see us. Across from us, I saw a line of people in front of a booth called the Pretzel Pal. A sign read, "Turn yourself into a pretzel. It's easy." It didn't sound like much fun to me. The kids all huddled in the shadow of the bus. Which way? A tall, dark-haired boy asked. Have we been here before? A girl with 2 cameras around her neck pointed. I think the entrance gates are that way. Then we want to go the other way, Sheena said. We don't want to try that again. We've got to decide fast, I said. Those horrors will be back. Matt was studying a sign to our left. Look, that's Goodbye Land, he said. I turned. The sign was a big tombstone. Engraved on it were the words Goodbye Land. Wave goodbye to your friends and family. Remember, Matt said, Michael Monroe was leading us there before he disappeared. Everyone turned to stare at the tombstone. We couldn't see into Goodbye Land because it was bordered by a tall hedge. Michael said this was the back end of the park, Carly Beth said. He thought there might be an exit there. We all jumped as a siren began to wail. Hurry, Matt said, glancing around. They set off the alarm, telling the other horrors that we've escaped. We took off, running toward the entrance to Goodbye Land. But we stopped beside the hedge several yards away. The entrance had 2 giant coffins standing upright on either side. Inside the coffins, 2 robot horrors stared straight ahead and waved goodbye. Look, in their foreheads, Matt said, pointing. Cameras, probably security cameras. If we go in the entrance, the monster police will see us. We can squeeze through the hedge, a girl named Abby said. Quick, no one is looking. I lowered my shoulder and shoved my way through the thick, prickly hedge. Everyone followed. A few seconds later, we all burst out, brushing needles from our clothes and hair. We stopped in the shadow of the hedge to look around. Goodbye Land was an enormous park, trees and grass and flower beds, very peaceful looking, like a graveyard. I don't see an exit, I said, but what's the ride over there? This part of the park was nearly deserted. We trotted over to the ride. It stood under a round red canopy. It was called the Ripper Dipper. I saw a sign beside the entrance. Warning, this ride only goes one way, down. Let's ride it, Sheena said. But how can it help us? I asked. It might take us to the underground tunnels, Matt replied. We were already down there, but they chased us out, he explained to me. If we can get back to the tunnels, we can follow them out of HorrorLand. The alarm sirens were still rising and falling on the other side of the hedge. I just want to know one thing, I told Matt. Why are you all so anxious to get out of here? No time to explain, Matt said. Trust us. We're in real danger. Stick with us, Boone. You really have no choice. No more talk. I followed him into the short, dark entryway. A line of small, square, black cars stood in front of us. The cars were on a track. The track led straight to a wide hole in the ground. Room for only one person in a car. We all scrambled into cars. I lowered myself into the nearest one and pulled a safety bar over me. I grabbed the steering wheel with both hands and spun it. The steering wheel was fake. It didn't control the car. A few seconds later, the ride started up. My hands flew off the wheel. My whole body jerked back hard as a deafening roar rose up all around me. And then I flew up off the seat as the car began to plunge straight down. Chapter 7. I gripped the safety bar with all my might as the car dropped, picking up speed as it fell. The tires whistled on the tracks. The air grew hot, faster, into total darkness. The ride was completely black, except for tiny yellow sparks that flew off the wheels of the car above me. I hate fast rides, especially when you can't see where you're going. Squeezed into this tiny car dropping into the pitch black, I thought, this is a lot like being buried, only at 100 miles an hour. Ow! I let out a startled cry as my car bumped the one beneath it. I felt a hard jolt. My car rocked and started to spin. I shut my eyes, and then the car stopped with a shattering jolt. Was the ride broken? How were we going to get out of here? What's going on? A voice yelled. Help! Suddenly, the safety bar slid out from my hands. Huh? I cried. Before I could catch my breath, the bottom of the car flew open with a loud snap, and I toppled out onto black space. Aye! A hoarse scream burst from my throat as I fell. I flew through the darkness, screaming all the way down. Gazing up, I saw Matt plummeting toward me, and other kids falling, everyone falling. A hot wind rushed past me as I dropped through the blackness. I shut my eyes and pictured my family. Mom, Dad, Heather. The last faces I would ever see. Chapter 8. The breath shot out of me as I landed hard on my back. I bounced, once, twice, struggled to breathe. Thud, thud. Kids crashed down all around me. Their hard falls sent me bouncing some more. Are we alive? Someone asked. I struggled to regain my breathing. My heart pounded like crazy. I sat up and squinted into glaring gray light. Hey, it's some kind of mattress, I managed to cry. We had all landed on an enormous air mattress. It's a free fall ride, Carly Beth said. I guess we were supposed to fall. Some kids laughed. A few kids cheered. We were all happy to be alive. But it didn't take long to remember the trouble we were in. Can we get to the tunnels from here? Matt wondered. Hurry, climb off this thing. Let's go. Before I could slide to the floor, I felt a hard grip on my shoulder. I spun around and stared into the scowling face of a gigantic green and purple horror. A bunch of big, powerful-looking horrors surrounded the air mattress, and Ned stepped forward. He wasn't smiling. Well, you survived the Ripper Dipper, he said. Good work, everyone. He motioned for the horrors to grab us. Now let's see what thrills and chills the Keeper has in store for you. No way we could escape. The horrors forced us to a rickety elevator that took us back up to the surface. Then they marched us through the park. Some park visitors cheered us as we passed by. They probably thought it was a parade or something. The horrors walked us across Zombie Plaza. I saw shops and food carts and game booths. Other kids were having fun. Why couldn't we? We came to the haunted theater. Above the entrance, the marquee read, Mondo the Magical. Were they taking us into a magic show? No, the horrors guided us into a little shop at the side of the theater. The shop was called Mondo's Tricks and Treats. I guess Mondo was selling his magic tricks there. The shelves were filled. I passed a display of boxes that read, a Mondo exclusive, pull a hat out of a rabbit. No time to look at the store. The horrors pushed us behind a curtain toward a little room in the back. At the far wall, a steep staircase led straight down. Our shoes clattered on the metal stairs. No one spoke. The stairs led to another flight of stairs, and then another. I realized we were now 3 floors beneath the park. My throat suddenly felt dry. Despite the hot air down there, my hands were cold. This was way scary. What did they plan to do with us? Just lock us up and keep us down there? We stepped out into bright lights, a huge room with furry orange and green chairs and couches, sunlight yellow wallpaper with blue fish all over it, a big zebra skin rug, a purple and white polka dot table with big claws on the legs, a floor lamp with red and white stripes like a barber pole. So many colors, it was almost blinding down there. and all the furniture was totally weird-looking and crazy. "Where are we?" I demanded. "Where have you taken us?" "You will be safe here," Ned said, "unless you get on the wrong side of the Keeper. Be careful with him. Do everything he tells you. He's called the Keeper, but there's one thing he can't keep. He can't keep his cool." "You can't do this," Matt screamed. "Let us out, now." "See you soon," Ned said. The door slammed shut behind him. Chapter 9. A hush fell over the room. We stood blinking, gazing around at the crazy colors and weird furniture. Finally, a boy named Robbie Schwartz broke the silence. "There's no one else down here. Let's break out," he said. "How?" Abby demanded. "We're a mile beneath the park." "We didn't hear Ned lock the door," I said. I ran to it, tried it. Wrong. It was locked. "Look, another room," Matt said. He pointed to a curtained doorway on the far wall. We burst into the next room. It was just as big as the first, with bright colors everywhere. The room was cluttered with strange junk, some kind of storeroom probably. I saw a rusted suit of armor leaning in one corner, a stuffed raven with a stuffed mouse in its mouth, a huge fish skeleton in a glass case. Suddenly, Abby let out a scream. "No, I don't believe it," she groaned. She stared at a mummy propped up in a chair. The wrappings were yellowed and stained, the mummy's head tilted to one side, but Abby was staring in horror at its middle. The ancient wrappings over the mummy's stomach had been ripped open. Before I could ask why she was so upset, I heard a scream behind me. Carly Beth pointed to something on a low table, a rubber mask. "Sabrina," she cried, "the haunted mask. How did it follow me here?" "There's something very wrong here," Julie said in a trembling voice. She pointed to an old camera inside a glass case. That camera is evil. It gave me so much trouble back home." Billy and Sheena were wide-eyed, frozen in front of an oil painting of a one-legged pirate. "Captain Jack," Sheena murmured, shaking her head. Carly Beth turned away from the ugly mask. "Don't you see what's happening?" she said. "All the hideous things that happened to us back home. They've all followed us to HorrorLand." "But how?" Robbie asked. "Do you think someone knew we all had horrifying adventures back home? Do you think that's why we were invited here?" Before anyone could answer, a door slammed behind us. A strangely costumed figure bounced into the room, and Robbie went pale. His mouth fell open, and he screamed, "No! No way! It's impossible! It can't be!" Chapter 10. Robbie staggered back until he hit the wall. The man wore a long, flowing leopard skin cape over a bright orange superhero costume. His yellow feathered boots came up to his knees. His hair was covered by an orange hood. His eyes were dark and round and rolled crazily in his head. "I am the Keeper," he boomed in a deep, thundering voice. Robbie took a step forward. "No, you're not," he cried. "You're Dr. Maniac." The man brushed back his cape. "Wowie, wow, wow. Guess I'm more famous than I thought." "You're not famous," Robbie screamed. "I created you." The weird superhero tossed back his head and laughed at the ceiling. He had a high-pitched giggle of a laugh. He giggled for a long time, holding his sides. Then he turned back to Robbie, and his expressions turned angry. "Kid, why don't you turn your teeth around and bite your face? You've got it all backwards, dummo. I created you." "Liar," Robbie screamed. He wasn't frightened now. He seemed way angry. "You're a liar." "I'm not a liar," the superhero boomed. "I'm a maniac." Again, he tossed back his head and giggled up at the ceiling. I turned to Robbie, who was now red-faced and trembling. "What's with this guy?" I asked. Robbie pulled a drawing out of his backpack. Look at this. I drew him in a comic strip." Robbie held it up so everyone could see. "I don't understand how he could be standing here. I made him up." Dr. Maniac swiped the drawing from Robbie's hand. He examined it for 2 seconds. "It looks a little like me," he said. "Not quite right around the chin. I'm much better looking than that." He ripped the drawing into shreds and stuffed the shreds into his mouth. "This guy's crazy," I whispered to Robbie. "I'm not crazy. I'm a maniac," the superhero screamed again. He spit out shreds of the paper. "And I'm the Keeper. Don't any of you think about escape. You can't escape from a maniac. Ha 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 ha." "Why were we invited to this park?" Matt demanded. "Why are you keeping us here now?" "That's for me to know and you to find out," Dr. Maniac bellowed. You can't keep us prisoner down here, Matt said. But that's my job, the superhero cried. He giggled again. Keeping you here is easy. That's why they call me the Keeper. They don't call me the let-'em-goer, do they? Matt clenched his hands into fists. We have you outnumbered, he said. Oh, I'm scared. I'm scared, the superhero moaned. He made his whole body shake as if he were frightened. Then he stepped up to the wall and threw a switch. Why don't you all take a walk, he cried. Whoa! I uttered a startled gasp as the floor started to move beneath us. I saw Carly Beth and Robbie stumble and fall onto their backs. I started walking, struggling to keep my balance. The floor was rolling underneath us, moving faster and faster. Stop it, we screamed, but Dr. Maniac tilted his head back and drowned out our cries with his insane laughter. Chapter 11. The floor of the room was a giant treadmill. We had to walk faster to keep up with it. Dr. Maniac raised himself off the floor and floated in front of us. Keep in step, people. Excuse me, he ordered. A few hours of walking will show you what the Keeper means business. He giggled. Don't thank me, just throw money. Ha 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 ha. I've got plenty more activities planned. Anyone like to play hangman? We'll play it later with a real noose. I was jogging pretty hard to keep my balance. My heart was pounding and my chest began to ache. Robbie was trotting next to me. He was having a tough time. I could see he was thinking hard, unable to believe what was happening. I guess he was kind of in shock. Suddenly, the door burst open and another superhero darted into the room. This dude was huge, with enormous biceps and a massive chest. His top and tights were bright purple. They matched his cape and his boots. He was a totally purple guy, except for his face, which was tomato red. No, Robbie cried out. No, it can't be. The Purple Rage. Did you make him up too? I asked, huffing and puffing as I kept my legs going. Robbie nodded. The Purple Rage flew up beside Dr. Maniac. Do you know what crunches my potato chips? He cried. This is good news, Robbie muttered to me. They are mortal enemies. They hate each other's guts. Their rage will rescue us. Are you sure? I murmured. I pointed. The two superheroes were hugging. Know what flips my rooster? The Purple Rage boomed. Working together with you. I've always wanted to work with a maniac. He turned to us. Keep walking, the Rage said. Walk till you squawk. Now I get it, Robbie cried breathlessly. Everyone, do you get it? Listen to me. If Dr. Maniac and the Purple Rage are working together, that must mean that all the bad guys we defeated back home are working together. Some kids gasped. I get it, Carly Beth said. They're working together against us. I didn't understand what Robbie and Carly Beth meant. I only knew that my legs were aching and I was out of breath from walking so fast to stay on my feet. I turned to the Purple Rage. Breathlessly, I called out, You mean you're not going to rescue us from that maniac? The Rage let out a deep growl. His face turned as purple as his costume. I could swear I saw steam pour out of his ears. He rushed forward and grabbed the front of my shirt. You've really burned my butter dish, he shouted in my face. I'm going to make an example of you, punk. Watch this, everyone. Watch what the mighty Rage does to the smart guy. No, let me do it, Dr. Maniac pushed the Purple Rage out of the way. Here's a hot new trick I learned. He began rubbing the palms of his gloved hands together, faster and faster. Watch carefully. I can set my hands on fire. A little trick taught to me by the Scorch. He rubbed his gloves harder, faster. Smoke rose up between them. He turned to the Rage. Do you know the Scorch? Nice guy, but he's got a fiery temper. Ha 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 ha. The Rage shoved Dr. Maniac aside. Know what wilts my wallaby? Waiting for you to take care of this punk. You're taking too long. He wrapped his purple gloves around my throat and lifted me up by my neck. Then he turned to the other kids. I used to earn a little extra money by making balloon animals, he said. What animal should I twist this guy into? Come on, don't everyone speak at once. Was this a joke? Some kind of comic book superhero joke? I shut my eyes and prayed it was a joke, but I knew it was real. I knew we were all totally helpless against these insane nuts. Helpless and doomed. I tried to cry out as the Purple Rage began to twist my arms behind me, but he was squeezing my neck so tightly I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. How about a nice poodle, he said. Or should I twist you into a giraffe with a long, long neck? To be continued in Book 10. So we've got Fear File number 9. You open the file with a paper clip on the left side. You've got a crumpled up advertisement for the pretzel place thing, but it's covered up with two more pieces of paper. At the bottom of the pretzel thing, it has enterhorrorland.com and all ages and all creatures show. Tickets available at the Crocodile Cafe, Guillotine Museum, and Haunted Theater. One of the papers on top of that advertisement is a to-do list. Number 1, pick up tights from dry cleaners. Number 2, mend rip and leopard skin cape. Number 3, finish trapdoor installation. Number 4, pay late fee for DVD rentals. Number 5, send flowers and cards to SS. Number 6, defrost meatballs. And then it's got what looks like a receipt. Dead Bats and Beyond. Supervillain Outfitters. Shackles, 5 at $39.99, so $199.95. Bear Trap, 1 at $49.99, so $49.99. Tripwire, 2 at $12.99, so $25.98. Soundproofing Kit, 1 at $129.99 for $129.99. Yellow Feathers, 1 at $9.99. Nets, 3 at $24.99, so $74.97. White Shoe Polish, sale, 4 at $4.99, so $19.96. Total, $510.83. On the right side, it's got a paper that says Stagger Inn. Dear Stagger Inn patron, as someone who has shown superior fright skills, you are eligible for our VIV, very important villain, treatment. Here is a sample of the items available to make your stay at the Stagger Inn as horrific as possible. You'll find more luxury scares in the welcome packet in your room. Personal care, dress capes, soiled rags, vat of slime, wood polish, small snacks, organs and entrails, scorpion feed, parentheses, we need 24 hours notice to collect guests, parentheses, squirrel, parentheses, rotten, roasted, or still wriggling, parentheses, vat of slime. Please contact Stagger Inn Desk Services if you would like any of these items to be waiting in your room when you arrive. And then handwritten, it's got find the rest at www.escapehorrorland.com, signed Lizzie. So here's the left side. The right side. And then we've got map number 9. I see, kind of looks like a castle with a skull above the door. I see a little place that looks like where you'd eat. There's like an umbrella for shade, I'm guessing. A fountain. A bus that says HorrorLand on it. In the middle here looks like a very big tent that says Monster Obstacle Courses. And then a track. And it doesn't say anything about where other maps would connect. But here it is. Bridge right there. Before Horrorland, another camp gone wrong starred in Goosebumps the Horror at Camp Jelly Jam. In case anyone is interested about that. Okay, this book is your ticket to www.enterhorrorland.com. Checklist number 9 is snakes on a bus. Catch these reptiles before they catch you. Heads will roll. Look what's on display at the Guillotine Museum. Brain drain. Prove your smarts before your brain is drained. Growling pigs, fur-covered snakes, buzzing insects. Look out. It's the monster obstacle course. And don't forget to visit the Crocodile Cafe if you survive that long. Howl if you love Horrorland. The terror continues in book number 10. If I were comfortable making a howling sound on camera, I would, because I enjoy Horrorland. Okay, we are done with book 9.